Hey, Rich.
We're live.
Okay, we're live. We're good to go.
All right. All right, so let's get started. So welcome everybody to the Tuesday, May 19th meeting of the Wethersfield Planning and Zoning Commission. I'll do the roll call. I'm here. Rich?
Here.
Brian Allard, not here. Jim Hughes, not here. George Boyko, not here, right? Joe Hammer?
Here.
Tony Omicki?
Here.
Tom Deane?
Here.
Dan Silver?
Here.
David Edwards?
Here.
Yolanda Antoniak? Not here. And Miss Murphy.
Hi. Here.
All righty. So I think we have 8. Do the math right? So I'll move into item number 1. Public hearing 3.1, application 2040-20-Z, 100 Great Meadow Road Associates seeking a special permit for a drive-in movie theater in accordance with section 5.3.13, which is other accessories at 100 Great Meadow Road. Would the applicant care to describe what he is proposing? Mr. Henny?
I just lost sound.
Can you hear us
We
now?
hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I cannot hear you. Hang on one second. I'm sorry. Something happened. Give me 1 second, if you would, please. All right, I'll just use this.
Coming in and out again?
Yeah, what is he, checking out and then coming back in?
Probably. By the way, is the other applicant here? Or
Yes.
did you?
Yes.
Oh, right.
Kelly on the screen there.
Oh, Kelly, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Peter, are you holding anybody from the public?
No, we,
I think we may have lost Chris, though.
here he goes. He's coming back in now.
Hello?
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I lost the video and the audio.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Essentially, if you take a look at the narrative that we wrote, because through our delivery of food, we had a great deal of contact with a number of residents of Wethersfield, Glastonbury, Rockville, and we found that the overwhelming majority of them are starting to get very almost insane with the fact that there's nothing they can do except stay at home. And so we started kicking around what we could do. We have the big parking lot, and at the time that we would be able to even begin to start showing a movie, the parking lot is largely empty. Even the restaurant starts to empty out, at 8:30, 9 o'clock. Most of our reservations are between 5:30 and 7:30. And so we thought that this would be a good use of the property, especially given where we are today with the COVID-19 virus. And so we started doing some exploration, put it together. Kevin Johnson designed the plan that you have in your package. And we have a company out of Maryland that is prepared to sell us the equipment and get it to us as quickly as they can. Just a quick aside, this is, of all the things we've done, this seems to have captured the public's interest more than anything else. We have had literally 50 people calling up trying to make reservations to get tickets for the theater. And yesterday, I ended up on a Zoom meeting with Mayor Rell and 2 people from the Travelers Championship, and they are interested in taking the theater June 25th, whatever the dates are that the golf is being played, and essentially because there won't be any gallery, any spectators, they want to take the theater that we put up and play the day's tournament at night for people to come in and watch. I mean, it's amazing. I don't know how, I mean, they obviously heard about it through the print media or television, but they were very excited about the possible prospect. And so it just has taken on a life of its own. And that's where we are. We want to try and get it up and running as soon as we possibly can. There's a tremendous amount of interest, and we think it'd be a good thing for people to be able to get out and be very safe. And Kevin Johnson can certainly address the way he spaced the parking places so that they all comply with the distancing measures that we are required to take now. And that's basically it.
So Kevin, do you have, like a presentation, if you will? Not so much a presentation, perhaps a summary of what you did?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I've never designed a movie theater before, but, the average parking space being 9 feet, I took 7 feet, and because there's always, a foot or so on either side, so I took 7 feet as an average for a vehicle, each side, came up with a 13-foot wide parking space. Chris wanted a 40-foot screen, an inflatable screen. I went out at 45-degree angles, had no set number of parking spaces in mind when I started. Basically trying to do radial parking so everyone would have a fairly decent view of the screen. Ended up with about 120 spaces.
Seems to stop once I stop.
Parking aisles would basically, have curves to them. Again, all radial to the screen. 24-foot width. Parking spaces would be 18 feet deep. We're not going to eliminate any of the existing parking striping for the office building. The idea would be there would be an attendant that would, designate an attendee to a space. My idea is, the aisles spaces would be delineated with a combination of, say, traffic cones and, reflective pavement tape of some sort. So that's really the thinking behind it.
And again, the look at the attendant, all of it will be done, everything will be taken care of online, so there won't be any real transfer of any monies between the people driving in and the attendant. He's simply there to be checking license plates of the people to make sure that they have had a reservation. So that would remain contactless. We would offer the delivery of food basically on the same basis that we do to houses or to cars, in the sense that we would send our people out, we'd put the food down, they'd walk away, and then people would open the door, pick up the food, and they'd have it. But the idea was really, we started thinking about the fact that all these people with small children have really got to be losing their minds along about now, and we felt that this would be a way to get the kids out, put them in the car, everything is a family unit. We would make sure that everyone practiced the social distancing when going to the restrooms. We would have an attendant cleaning the restrooms very frequently. to make sure that they're sanitized. And we've tried to address everything so that it takes into account the COVID-19 virus and make it as risk-free as possible.
Questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I have a couple, Tom.
Oh.
So the 13, Kevin maybe could answer this, the 13-foot width of the spaces, what does that mean in practicality in terms of how far would a car be away from the next car parked?
Well, again, there'd be 6 feet between each car, because again, if you have a 9-foot space, I took 7 as an average, because there's always a little bit left over per parking space. So from the 7, I went 3 feet both sides. So that's how I came up with 13, and then that would get repeated with every vehicle. So there'd be 6 feet between every vehicle, both sides of each car.
Okay. Okay. And I guess another question would be, other than people maybe getting out of the car to go to the restroom, would they be required to watch the movie from inside the car and not, congregate outside the cars? I'm just thinking in terms of the social distancing aspects of this.
That's a very good question, and I think that the governor, I believe there are guidelines for, there are currently 3 existing drive-in movie theaters in the state of Connecticut. One in Southington, one in Mansfield, and one in Barkhamsted. And I think that we would probably be guided by whatever requirements the other 3 would have to follow. So, I'm not going to pretend to set myself up as an expert in drive-in movie theaters. I'm not. I mean, I'm an office building developer and a restaurateur, but by virtue of getting into this, I would be guided by whatever the other 3 drive-in movie theaters would be required to do, and we would simply follow suit.
Right. I raise it only because I think, obviously if people were setting up lawn chairs and watching it from outside, then that could become something different and closer. And I guess one last question would be, are you proposing this, on a temporary basis just while the current pandemic is occurring? Are you looking for a permanent approval? And if it's beyond the pandemic, is it something that would be a summertime thing as opposed to year-round?
Well, I think that obviously there's going to be quite a significant investment that would have to be made here. So, I would not be able, I wouldn't be able to do it if it were a very short window. I think that the way, believe it or not, probably along about now, if the virus had not hit, we would be sitting here, Kevin and I, with a plan for a 120-room Marriott Courtyard, which we had designed. We have the footprint basically done. We have Marriott on board, and the whole idea was to use the property at a time when the office building and restaurant would not be using it to a degree so that we would have ample parking for the hotel. That's what we would probably be before you right about now. I think that the way I'm looking at this is, it's almost, I would much rather do a hotel business, and I think the hotel business is going to come back very strong when it does. I would rather be in the hotel business than in the drive-in movie business. So my thought would be, they almost are going to cross at a point in time when it would be feasible to build the hotel. It would be unfeasible to continue the drive-in movie, because people are going to be able to get together socially again. Whether it's a vaccine or, believe me, I don't know that much about it, but a vaccine or a cure or whatever, at some point we're going to come back together. We're not going to be practicing this forever, I don't believe. And so at that point, the drive-in movie would become make no sense, and then it would shift, and my focus would be to develop the hotel.
If you do develop the hotel at some point in the future, does that then mean that the parking used now for the theater or its area to support the hotel, the building itself, or the parking itself, or the park?
Oh, if we build the hotel, oh no, then the drive-in theater is out. That goes away,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions. First of all, because I've read the land is flat, do you expect any problems about patrons watching the movie because it's flat rather than on an incline?
Well, what the people that have designed the screen tell me, first of all, the screen is 6 feet 6 inches above ground, where the movie actually starts. And we believe that should be enough to allow for people to be able to see the movie over the cars in front of them.
The next question I have is, would you have any difficulties if we approve this on a conditional basis to review it again in 6 months?
Well, yeah, because I'm going to have an awful lot of money in it, and if you said that it was going to go away, then I'm stuck with a giant loss, and that would be
I understand.
financially untenable.
My initial reaction to the question about the parking is that, Kevin could adjust the parking. It'll end up being less. You'll have fewer cars there, but you could route the cars and still get, sightline to the screen, probably. Would be my guess. The flat property doesn't necessarily include it. It just means you'd have to, perhaps go less parking and model it further, right?
Did we lose Kevin?
Yeah.
Just study the site section to the screen.
It's an out of the box. I can't immediately picture any other property that, that is so out of the way and you can try something like this, personally. The social distancing aspect is something that, we can all be sensitive to. Who's gonna arguably regulate it? I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and suggest you want to be able to follow the rules. If it gets out of hand, who is going to be there to stop it? Are we going to have some police presence or something if necessary, if it starts getting out of hand? I do recognize what Joe is pointing out. People may well, if you only have half a crowd, may well pull out their lawn chair and sit in this parking space in front of them, kind of. And that may be okay. And then again, if every other spot is full, it may not be okay. So, I'm not saying it's a negative thing. I just think it's going to be it's a neat idea, and I kind of think we're going to have to try it. If we're going to say okay, it's going to be trial and error type of approach.
Oh, I think to a large extent it will be trial and error, but I think that it's incumbent upon us. We will have security, and it'll be incumbent upon us if someone we'll set up regulations, and they will be driven by, again, what the state tells the drive-in movie operators what they're allowed to do. I think I read something, and I could be off, but I believe one of them anyway said there are no lawn chairs allowed. If you sit on the hood of your car, it's okay, because then you're within the footprint of that car, and so you're not breaking the social distancing. So regulations like that is what we would put in place, and it behooves us to remind people gently at first, and then if necessary, ask them to leave, because it's clearly critical in this time, and we're going through it because we're going to be opening the restaurant tomorrow. It's clearly critical that the public have confidence and faith that you are going to do the right thing to protect their safety. And I think that it just would be suicidal as a business to play that fast and loose. And not that I wouldn't do it anyway, but I think that it is certainly very counterproductive to even allow anything to be construed as unsafe. And so the answer to your question is, the short answer is yes, we are going to police it and make sure that the guidelines are followed, because we have to.
You may want to check, some towns have ordinances, and I have no idea whether Wethersfield does or does not have ordinances concerning gatherings of large numbers of people that you're required to have a police officer. I'm not sure that we have that. I'm not aware of it, but I know some towns do have that requirement. You may want to look at that.
Okay?
So,
And I would not be adverse to having a policeman present. I mean, that'd be, whether it's our security or whether we hire an off-duty policeman, that'd be fine with me. I mean, it may even be the best way to go.
I had a quick
ask a question.
A quick question. I had sent an email to Peter on this. Do we have to have this reviewed by the Department of Transportation because of the possible vehicle distraction both on 91 and the bridge? I know from the 3 movie theaters that existed, drive-in movies that existed on the Berlin Turnpike when I was younger, that several times people would literally slow down and or park on the adjacent roads to watch the movies for free. But I remember several times there were a couple went up here by where the big housing was, that driving movie there were a couple rear-ending incidents I remember when I was a teenager of people slowing down to see the movie and people behind hitting them. But would we have to have it reviewed somehow from a DMV or a traffic study somehow?
I mean, I don't.
I'm just bringing it up.
I'm not sure. Kevin, maybe you can. I'm not sure it would be visible from 91 all that visible anyway.
Well, if you recall, Chris, last week when we met with staff in the parking lot, we commented about not really being able to see it from I-91.
Right.
Okay, I
think it's
was wondering.
Away.
We did meet last week out in the field with the fire marshal, the town engineer, the building official, and myself, and I did take that perspective. We stood where the screen was going to be. There's a lot of vegetation that blocks the view from 91, and then the angle of the bridge starts below the tree line, so you might be able to get a glimpse of it, but it's not the kind of situation where you would be able to stop and view it, or you know what driver behavior is, but it doesn't look like it's visible from either the interstate or the bridge.
Oh, by the way, I think you're gonna make a few people upset. The other night when I drove by the site, there were a couple people sunning themselves at the exact location in lounge chairs where the movie screen's gonna be.
Well, I noticed that myself, and I really was absolutely, I was blown away by it. I mean, we've had a lot of weird stuff happen over here, but that was a new one. Somebody pulled up, a woman got out in her bathing suit and actually set up a lawn chair right where the screen is going, and she was there for a couple of hours.
Chris, maybe you need to bring some sand in while you're putting the movie theater up. I have a couple quick questions. On page 4 of 7 of your pass out, you have 7 size screens. One of them can entertain over 3,000 viewers. That's pretty massive. I assume you're looking at the 20-foot screen. How high will the actual screen be?
No, we're looking at the 40-foot screen only because the difference is when you have 3,000 viewers, they're packed in like sardines. But when you start spreading cars out, I mean, that simply is, those are people on benches, escape. But when you start spreading cars out and then adding social distancing and everything else, then what we don't want to do is order a screen and make it not work from the get-go. So we want to make sure that we have a big enough screen that will at least allow people to see the movie.
Okay, and you'll be purchasing the screen, the mechanics to blow this up, as well as the camera equipment. Will that be digital equipment?
Yes, it's an
So that is quite an investment.
Yeah, exactly. And the screen, believe it or not, it blows up and comes down, and they say 20 minutes, which I was really surprised. But that's what changes the whole dynamic and makes it possible. I mean, obviously, if we had to build the kind of screen that they built in the drive-in movie theaters in the 50s and 60s, this would make no sense whatsoever. But because it is inflatable and we can take it up and put it down, it does make a lot of sense.
Will you be owning the movies, or do you lease the movies out?
I've got a telephone call with a company out of Montana that provides movies to theaters tomorrow, and I'll then get an education and tell you how it works. Basically, they take these people negotiate for Disney and for Universal Pictures, etc. And I'll know a whole lot more tomorrow. But no, we don't own the movies. We simply would rent them for a period of time. Maybe we'd show it for a week at a time. This will not be a first-run movie theater. I mean, there's no way in the world we'd be able to afford those kinds of films. I mean, I'm thinking, things like, Bambi and, things that would be appealing to children and are old enough where they can be afforded because this is a relatively small viewing audience, as you can appreciate.
Great. Good. Thank you.
Another question, which was, would the screen be taken down and removed on a daily basis when the office building is back to full occupancy? And I guess same question for the temporary striping of that work to convert from movie at night to office by day.
Yeah. I think what will happen, the screen may just stay there. I mean, I don't know. I need more information from the screen, but that'll simply, it's not that big. It'll simply down and put in a carrying case. As far as the striping, and depending on to come back to the office building, we will maybe there's a where the office are and where the spaces are, and obviously the office will understand that they can park in their office spaces, and then with the patrons of the movie theater, we will be assigning spaces, directing them how to get there with each car. So it's not like the old drive-in movies where you just drove in and found a spot. We're going to be parking each car wherever we want it, so it's strategically located and in the right place.
Let me just go through the record if I could. Okay, so Peter, was there anything in your memo other than describing the situation?
Staff did provide comments on the layout. Let me pull it up here.
Derek did, right?
Derek did, and I provided them offline to the applicant, but we asked that the cashier attendant booth originally was at the main driveway. We were concerned about it blocking up the street, so it got moved to this location, if you can see where the cursor is. So as there's a bit of a stacking area for that. We did have some other comments about details on the spacing of the parking, the traffic flow. You can see the traffic flow arrows have been added so that they're exiting down the main driveway rather than conflicting with vehicles coming and going. So there were a few things like that that things got moved around a little bit. And I think some of the comments we just heard about the projection equipment being moved and things like that address some of our other issues. You can see this projector is kind of out of the way, but this one is in the middle of a travel lane, so we had concerns about things like that that would kick in when the property is getting more intensely used.
Well, thank you, and Derek mentioned lighting can be, he had some questions anyways, and I assume that Kevin will respond to those questions. Right? Is there anything else in the record? I didn't notice any other correspondence, is there?
No other correspondence. I did consult with the, it's not in the record, but I did consult with the police department to make sure they didn't have any obvious concerns with this, and I believe Chris did speak with the chief, and I also spoke with the chief, and he had no concerns regarding this.
And we know there's nobody in the public on the line to bring into the conversation?
Did not receive any emails, comments, or questions, for the record.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions.
Good, Rick.
For Chris, do you know if the drive-in movie theaters are part of the phase 1 reopening that starts tomorrow, or are they phase 2, phase 3?
Actually, they were allowed to be open. My understanding is, and I could be wrong, but either the one in Mansfield or the one in Barkhamsted started showing movies on the 15th of May, and the other one, Mansfield, is starting tomorrow. So, yeah, to answer your question, at a minimum, they're part of phase 1, or they may have been allowed to be open prior to that. I don't know.
Okay. You show the two sides of the movie screen. Is there an anticipation that you're going to use both of them most of the time, or will one of them be used more of the time? Because it seemed like the one to the south had more parking spaces available and would be less likely to impact the traffic flow for the restaurant and for the office building.
Yeah, my guess is that depending on demand, we would certainly open, if we're going to open one, it would be the south side. In answer to your question, yes.
And I couldn't tell from the drawing that was submitted, but where's the screen relative to the larger trees that you have on that landscaped island in the middle of the parking lot? It seemed like, there's some kind of low trees to the west, and then some sort of, at least two relatively large ones that seem to be right about where the screen is.
Kevin? Is Kevin with us?
That was a moment ago. Unmute yourself, Kevin.
I'll do it. Let me do it here. How about now, Kevin? Try it now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, there's some existing hemlock trees in the center aisle. They have to be removed. And the more significant ones, I believe, are to both sides of the screen.
Okay, yeah, there were kind of two relatively big ones on the, I guess, westerly end of that, and then it was sort of not much going on, and then some bigger ones closer to the building. So it's kind of between the sets of bigger trees.
Yeah, the hemlocks, they're really not in very good condition, and they're just a matter of time before they die anyway. So they're probably going to have to be, they will have to be removed to erect the screen.
Okay.
And there may still have to be a little bit of shifting of that screen. I mean, the exact placement is not etched in stone.
Right. Yeah, and I guess to follow up on one of the things that Joe mentioned was, recognizing that there is a significant investment involved here, and that it doesn't make any sense to do it for 4 months. I'd still like to throw out the possibility of, after the season being over, having the opportunity to revisit not whether it stays or goes, but whether there are any kind of procedural or operational restrictions that, that need to be made, and whether it takes the form of just kind of a report back from staff and the applicant as to how the season went, rather than, an application for, an extension or anything like that. I'll leave it to everybody else, but it does seem like, if it's going to go beyond this season, we want to have the opportunity to at least figure out and make sure that, everything is going properly.
Do you have a reaction to that?
I want it to go properly also, so I don't have any objection to a discussion about it. But we're going to be putting an awful lot of money into it, and if the restrictions that would be suggested put us out of business, then it's a problem.
No, I understand that.
We're not going to do anything.
There's no point on our side in giving you a permit to do something only to take it away. It's just at least the opportunity to have a conversation about, what worked, if anything didn't work, what you might be doing differently, so that you don't necessarily have to come in and get a modification to the special permit for next year.
It may need an extra security person, may need a police officer, those types of things. I think is what Rich is referring to.
Oh yeah, now that I'm certainly open to that, because and probably because I'm going to be there every day watching this. I might even catch it before you even hear about it and rectify it, because it's in my best interest. Don't forget, this, compared to the rest of the investment we have here, while it's significant, it's small compared to the rest. And the most important thing is the office building and then the restaurant. This becomes, with all due respect, the poor cousin, and to the extent it's having any kind of negative impact on anything, I would be in it. It just would not be in my best interest, as I'm sure you can appreciate.
Nope. Yeah, by the same token, it is a land use permit, not a Chris Henney permit, so that if you were to sell the building tomorrow, this would continue with, whoever took it over.
I don't think I'm ever going to get out of the building. No, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Has there been any consideration for the litter that's going to be generated from the people eating in their cars?
Yes.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I think, Peter, did you bring that up? Somebody on the staff brought it up, and that we are going to, that was one of the comments, and we're putting rubbish cans strategically around, and then, of course, since we're going to have both office tenants and restaurant patrons showing up the next day, we will be out there with a team making sure that the parking lot is cleaned every night. That'll be the last thing we do before we leave.
Yeah, it's kind of like a circus. You're going to deflate the tent and you're going to clean up the grounds when you leave. But, I had another question. This standpoint, when you go online and you make you buy your ticket, do you reserve a spot in the? Like, well, I go to a picnic. Say I want 5 spots in the back, all in a row. Can I buy all 5 and like in a movie theater right now, and lock them in to my name?
You know what? I hadn't considered that, but I think that to the extent I can get my online ordering thing to do that, I like the idea, because then people get to pick and choose, and why not the first come, first serve, and the people that get there first get to pick what they want. So
I remember doing it at the Disney Drive-In movie theater in Florida, where a bunch of families, we all got all 4 cars in a row. And it was a nice thing to have 4 people that you knew sitting there eating dinner, watching the movie.
I will certainly look into that.
Okay.
Could you speak to the Hours of operation, obviously it's at night, but is it every night? How many times a week are you planning on this?
Well, we were planning on doing it 7 nights a week because we don't know when people can go to movies, when they can get away, it probably will start off 7 nights a week. And then, if we just see that, say, a Monday night isn't busy, then there's no point in running it for nobody. We're going to be driven a lot in something like this by the market.
Any additional questions, or is everybody questioned out and want to make a motion on the hearing?
Make a motion, we close the hearing. It's Rich.
I second.
Thank you, Dan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, George joined us. George didn't say anything. George, you want to unmute yourself and? All right. Let the record show that George didn't participate in the vote. George, find your mute button. All right. Would somebody like to start the discussion?
I think it's a good idea. It's a good use of the property. I think, at least at this time, if you want to invest the money, I'd like to see it happen. It'd be good for the town, good for kids, get them out of the house, bring some civility back to households throughout the town of Wethersfield. I think it's a good idea, and if you want to expend the money to give it a shot, I say go for it.
I'll start making a motion if you like.
Okay, sure.
To approve application 2040-20-Z 100 for 100 Great Meadow Road Associates for drive-in movie theater with comment made by support staff, the engineer, and the town planner.
All right. Somebody like to second it to start the dialogue?
Yeah, it's
I'll
Rich.
second.
All right, Tom, thank you. All right.
It's Rich, I was gonna suggest a stipulation that we have a report from staff and the applicant as to, how things went between December 1st of this year and January 31st of next year.
Okay. I'll accept that as part of the motion.
No specific criteria in the report. You just want to know how it went and have an opportunity for us to talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Tom, you okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Other comments by commissioners? All right. That was easy. All those in favor say aye.
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 Is there anybody opposed? George, I'll give you another opportunity.
Let me try.
Where's George?
Let me try to. I got to ask
Just
him to
joined him
unmute.
and left the room. All right. Well, the best of luck to you. I look forward to trying it out.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, and I'll keep you apprised of what we're doing. I'm going to place the order tomorrow for the screen and get this thing moving so we can hopefully help out the stage too. They don't really know what to do, and this is going to be they're going to be. As a matter of fact, I've received a text just now from one of the people in the TPC saying, "How did it go?" So they'll be very happy about this, and I appreciate it, and thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you all when we can do this not over a Zoom meeting.
Exactly. All right. Thanks. Good luck.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.
See you later, Kev.
Take care.
All right, moving on to item 3.2, a public hearing. This is application 2042-20-Z 100. And this is Kelly Halligan seeking a special permit for a major home occupation in accordance with section 3.5.2, 84 Jameswell Road. So welcome, Kelly. Patricia?
That's my middle name.
Okay, all right. Well, welcome, Kelly. So I think you just saw how it works. If you could start by describing to us what it is that you'd like to do.
Sure. So I would like to offer home-based holistic healing, alternative medicine support, things like energy healing, so meditations, aromatherapy. Clients will be taken on an appointment-only basis. They will come to the dwelling for appointments, along with the option for virtual sessions. I do travel as well. My hours would not allow for accommodating more than 5 visits on site in one day. I've been trained as a facilitator in organizing and leading support groups, and have been doing those for just about over a year now remotely, and as well as on site at other wellness centers. I continue to receive education in those services that I provide to keep me up to date. I've received many requests for one-on-one support. Let's see. I also wanted to clarify in the narrative, I noted that the business would operate on the second floor, but to me, my second floor, that's the basement. So just for context. And I don't know, so I have the narrative for you guys, and I don't know if you've read that, if you want me to go through that, or if there were any specific questions regarding those statements. I'm happy to go through them if you'd like.
Yeah, I have a question. From the plans were submitted, it looks like the pathway is a stone pathway going through. And I'm just concerned about safety of people coming and going over those flagstones. Those flagstones have a tendency to be raised up, and the weather changes them, and it could be a dangerous situation.
Yes, so that's actually a project we're working on this weekend, just uplifting them all and making sure that everything's dug out properly so that they fit nice and secure, because yes, we have seen during rainstorms they can slide. With the way I would share with clients to enter the dwelling, they would navigate through the stones that are flat and not on the hill. There was 2 photos. So that would be less of a risk, is what I'm saying.
So you're going to promote parking on Dick's,
Correct.
right? And coming on the flat surface,
Correct.
The entryway.
And then coming inside?
Yes, so they would enter through a doorway that leads directly into where the business would be. So not traveling through the house, there's a separate entrance.
I feel there should be paved parking out there on Dick's in those 2 spots.
Is there a concern for the gravel that's spaced out there?
Well,
now?
it's not adequate gravel, it's the problem. I don't think it has a permanency to it, it's been there a long while. And I agree with the stone issue too, the slabs going up. You're not gonna go up the side then at all. You're just gonna go in that lower level and then up to the main floor.
Nope, they'll just park on the side of Dick's Road and then follow the pathway that leads directly to the door there. So there's no need to travel.
The lower door or up the side.
Not
Up the side is Mr. Silver mentioned.
Right, not up the side. That was, I included that photo just to share the differences between where a client would enter versus there being enough parking.
Everything is going to take place then on that lower level?
Yes.
Okay, and the parking's going to be on that off of Dick's?
Correct.
Okay. Then, I still think the parking ought to be paved down in there. I really think it should be. And those flags even going from that parking lot over to the slab look to be like they got to be more stabilized to me also.
They don't give proper like I say, if we need ADA clearance, they don't give the 210 proper ADA clearance for a sidewalk. But, has your, home insurance reviewed this and granted you the, if we approve it, granted you the right to do it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because you gotta really provide access for handicapped. You never know when somebody, probably your patients aren't gonna be handicapped, but they may have somebody with them that has a wheelchair, that has that problem.
The guidance provided by the U.S. Department of Justice in the Small Business Primer speaks to the requirements. I would not be discriminating against anyone who seeks my services, as I'm prepared to make referrals if needed for providers who work in facilities which are handicap accessible. The 12 categories identified as public accommodations don't list private homes. So I'm not a brick and mortar business, but rather home based, and the rules there are just a little bit different.
Are you going to have, you have some late days, I notice, and it gets dark. You don't have any lighting back there, do you, or even one light? Or is there one on the back of the house?
There's one on the back of the house, yes.
And it lights up that parking area and the walkway
Yes.
adequately? Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Will the same parking and path be used when it snows? Will you plow it out? Yes.
Correct.
The site's a good site as far as I'm concerned, looking at it, because it's shrouded with large shrubs, both the downhill side and the back and along the right side on Dick Street, except where the parking is. So she really is got a good site that way. It's just these flags and things that bother me, and maybe the paving.
Yeah, every now and then we do one of these home occupations. We always want to help the applicant have a safe site. Obviously, what going through my mind was to make sure that the insurance companies put in, and I don't know, do they do a site visit or whatever to confirm?
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
They didn't do a site visit. I'm working through the same insurance that my homeowner's insurance provides. So I'm just assuming that they have an overview of that as well, along with answering questions such as what you were asking, providing the answers to them.
Other questions?
Okay, just one. Sorry, just one quick one is, will you be the only provider of services in the office?
Yes.
Okay.
No other staff or employees?
That's correct. Nope.
Do you anticipate that at the times when you have two people overlapping, that they'll both be parking on Dick's, or will one be on the other street, or do you know?
I would ask that they both park on Dick's.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Jameswell is kind of narrow, and neither one of them has sidewalks, so I think, Dick's has more traffic, but it's probably a better location.
All right, so I'm going to, there's no questions at the moment while you're still thinking about it. I'm going to run through some of the correspondence that we got. And I'm sure Peter can correct me. I think there's probably 4 pieces of correspondence. 3 seem to be a form document, and I think they were with our packet. So, individuals residing at 60 Jameswell. I'm going to assume, I think the last name is Rivera. They are in favor of it. At 78 Jameswell, Mr. Geiger, again in favor of it, and Mark, not really sure, Sheridan at 304 Dix. Could the applicant help us understand where is 304 Dix versus the side of your house?
Bear with me while I try to explain it. If I'm standing in my front doorway, They are not directly across from me, they're diagonal to me.
Toward Dick's?
Northwest, yes.
Okay.
Southwest corner.
Oh,
All right, and I know that another letter came in late this afternoon. Peter, could you help us with that one?
Certainly. Late today, at almost 4 o'clock, we received an email from the resident or the owner of 310 Dix Road, Mr. Roman. It's spelled Borysiuk, indicating that he was vehemently opposed to granting the approval for this address. It is a residential neighborhood for families, not a place for business. I don't want to set a precedent for other entrepreneurs. There is plenty of space in other commercial areas of town. Those were the 4 pieces of correspondence from neighbors.
Peter, where is that last one?
The last one was 310 Dix Road. So that's maybe next door or 2 houses away from 304.
Up the hill, right? Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Up at the flat. Okay.
You know, actually, the packet had...
Southwell, somewhere, corner maybe.
Yep. So, the package we all received did have a street map with addresses on it, so I should have looked at that earlier. You can all see what these particular parties.
It's hard to read, so I have it in front of me and I can't see the numbers on there, so.
Yeah, 304 is the one diagonally across the intersection. 310 is
Next
the
door.
next house up the hill toward Ridge.
Next one up the hill.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's probably right.
That's
That's at the corner of Southwell, I think, yeah.
that's one house up from the corner of Jameswell.
Right.
Are there any documents I'm forgetting, like from the town staff or anything?
No, I know Kelly has spoken with the building official, Steve Lattarulo, I think, so I asked her to coordinate with him, so maybe she wants to speak to that. This type of application typically does not generate many comments from the other departments.
I spoke with Steve, just gathering some information regarding handicap accessibility. But I actually did better working with the Small Business Association, so we didn't really discuss much. He didn't have any concerns or questions.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant?
Kelly, could you tell us again how many clients you'll have during the course of the day? And
There would never be more than 5 in one day.
it'll be spaced out in between each one, so it's not like I know it was asked before, but you won't have cars next to cars next to cars.
Correct. There would only ever be 2 clients here at a time, and that would be just through transitioning.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
What's the length of a typical appointment? Is it like an hour?
Yes. 30 minutes or an hour. Yep.
All right.
And Kelly, what time would the appointments be?
Anywhere between 10 o'clock and then some days ending at 5, but they would never go past 9 p.m.
That included
And
Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm sorry.
Saturdays and Sundays too, right?
Yes. Saturdays and Sundays I would stop at 2 o'clock.
And I overran you. We were responding to...
Oh, that's okay. Not every day would be until 9 o'clock. There was only 2 days.
So once again, we're reminded that these sort of things run with the property. Peter, is there some indication that this property had a use like this prior? Does have the parking on the side? No?
I'm not aware, I didn't see anything indicating that, so it may have been for the same reason, just to provide, access to the lower level rather than coming down the slope, but I did not have any indication of a history here.
Would that benefit me?
No, other than other than I'm thinking, are your neighbors already bad? You know, I don't know if you're a new owner, you know, there was one there before, unregulated, and, you know, your neighbors are anxious about it, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
My mind. This is not an enforcement action or anything, right, Peter?
No.
No, did not come out of enforcement.
You know. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? And if not, it is a public hearing. Entertaining a motion.
Rich, I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Thank you, Rich.
Second.
Dan, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, so I think we started with 8. George must be 9, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Well, I'm here. Do you hear
I
me?
know. You weren't here at first, though. 1, 2,
No, I
3, 4,
wasn't.
5, 6, 7, 8. I think that's 9 of us. All right. So would somebody like to start the dialogue? And Kelly, you're out of the loop now. Okay. So
We'll start the discussion. I'll make a motion. We approve application 2042-20Z as submitted.
thank you.
Any conditions, Peter?
The only condition oftentimes you discuss is whether you want to review it down the road,
Right.
so that, you know, you haven't created a problem, but that's you do that on a case-by-case basis.
Rich, I'd second your motion, except, you know, I'd like to see paving, and I'd also like to see a time on it, a year maybe. A couple, I don't care, whatever.
A year for what? Just a review?
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah. I mean, I must admit, I'm struggling with putting that requirement on too. I'm inclined to leave it to an insurance company who, and I don't know if that means that we, you know, ensure that she has an insurance policy every year. That seems like, you know, work for the town staff, but,
Well, that makes sense.
yeah. They're really ensure the premises with an operation like that. Others, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm just wary about putting time limits on the special permit for uses like this.
Am I the-
From a property, property planning and regulation perspective, this does seem a relatively benign use. I don't see the real need to put time conditions on it. Possibly it might be useful to review it, but not to impose a time limitation on the permit. And that's also, I understand, to be somewhat suspect from a judicial perspective. So again, I just repeat, this does seem to be quite benign use of the property.
Every now and then we get a echo, and I honestly did not hear Rich's comment. Could you repeat it, Rich?
I didn't think I said anything.
It was before Tom. It was before Tom.
I think it was.
I said I'm just wary about imposing time limits on special permits because I don't think they're enforceable.
Thank you.
Rich, you're not interested in paving that, or no one else is on the commission?
I think I was more concerned about the sidewalk as opposed to the paving, George. But Kelly said they're going to address it this weekend.
Yeah.
That would help.
And-
But I think when you have a business going into a residential area, that paved areas make sense, particularly on that hillside. That Dick's Road there is very steep. difficult in wintertime and stuff, so that's
Yeah, I
why.
mean, frankly, it would be nice, but I guess, you can also see it cutting the other way in that it adds permanency and makes it more obvious that there's people parking there rather than, if this goes away, just kind of returning it back to not quite nature.
So you consider this a temporary thing, Rich, then?
Everything is temporary.
Okay, well, we have a motion with no conditions that I've heard. Specifically, it didn't seem like anybody picked up on George's suggestions. Don't smile, Rich. I'm trying to be nice.
No, just hearing you on the 7-second delay.
Oh. So, should we just take a vote? All those in favor? Motion to approve with no specific conditions. Except for a report out in a period of time. So I was almost too quick. Did we put a time for report out, Rich? Was there something that you were specifically?
No,
Rich,
did have
you
a-
didn't want a report, right?
not on this one.
I'm sorry. I was misremembering that. Okay. So it's a straight up approval, no conditions on it. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And is there somebody opposed? Nobody? Okay. All right. Well, the best of luck to you, Kelly.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for your time and suggestions.
Take care.
Okay, good night.
All righty. Going back to the agenda. Get back to the top of the thing here. Is there any other business, or should we just jump into the minutes, Peter?
Minutes?
Yes.
Yeah, I will make a motion to approve the minutes. No, I can't. Was I there? I wasn't there. No.
I'll make a motion
that.
to approve
Next chair.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Dan,
That was Dan? A second?
a second.
Second. Okay.
Lisa, you're second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I'm not voting, George.
Thank you, George. Staff reports, correspondence. Peter, the floor is yours.
So obviously the big news this week is the governor's executive order to allow Phase 1 businesses to open tomorrow. So we've spent the last week or so preparing for that. The most significant thing that he did is the order allows. Do we lose Rich there? He looks like he went airborne now. No, he's still
Turning the volume down.
he's with us. So the most significant thing was he allowed restaurants and retailers to have outside dining as well as outside merchandise display, subject to just a staff level review. That review has to be conducted in 10 days or it's automatically approved. So we are working with several restaurants who have not historically had outside dining to allow them to present a plan and for approval to do that. So we've been busy. I wouldn't say it's overwhelming, but we had to establish a new application form, establish some information requirements and get that out to the broader community. We're still kind of spreading the word on that, trying to get that on the town website and through social media to let the business community know all about that. So don't be surprised if over the next few days you see businesses with outside dining that didn't have it before. The order also allows the businesses to set up in parking lots, on sidewalks, even in the street if they can get the approval from the town. So as you can imagine, we've been scrambling a little bit with that. So you may have also noticed that originally salons and barbershops were going to be allowed to be open tomorrow. That's been pushed out, so we were working with the health district as well on some of the salon permits to accommodate them, but that's been changed a little bit and pushed out until June 1st, I think. So that's kind of the big news. Additionally, we're doing the final, did someone have some questions on that? I heard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you review what
That time
we
was
go on
already
to-
a win.
Oh,
All right, let's do this one at a time. Dan, go ahead.
Can you reveal what restaurants have come to you for plans to open?
sure. The Charles Restaurant, the new restaurant, they want to set up in their parking lot, so that's going to create some, they're going to use that for parking, so that's going to be something we're working with them on. Actually, they haven't filed an application yet, they, but they are working with us. Old Town Cafe on Main Street. We are working with Vito's. If you remember, you had given them approval last year. They never got around to doing that, so they're revisiting that. And there's a couple more that called today that we're circling back on. So it's about half a dozen locations. There may be more as the word gets out. Some restaurants are just finding it's not worth it to do all of that. It's a nice option to have, but for some of them, it doesn't make any sense.
Are there existing restaurants, Peter, that have done it in the past that are also in the process of opening it under the new social distancing guidelines, and could you tell us which ones?
Sure. The ones that already had historical approval do not need to go through the same process in terms of a new application with us. However, they still have to self-certify to make sure they're following all the state guidelines, and they need to change business practices to meet those guidelines in terms of spacing the seats out more, providing certain types of utensils, things like that. So I know Lucky Lou is planning on opening tomorrow. The River, as Chris Henney indicated, is opening tomorrow. So staff will be going out and visiting the locations, making sure they're abiding by all of the state guidelines. But the most important thing is the state is imposing it upon the businesses to basically go through a self-evaluation to make sure they're doing all the things that they need to do. The town will be looking over their shoulder. If we see something, we will speak to that.
How long are these permits for, Peter? November?
They're as good as the executive orders stay in place, and so that I think I'd heard some dates. I'm not sure there is a date until the orders are lifted, but it's basically it's basically temporary. So they're not gaining any permanent approvals that they didn't have before. They may come back after this is all done and seek some permanent approvals, but at that point they'd have to go through the normal channels that we have in place for that.
Any of these ever had any issues with neighbors that you're aware of or remember?
Potentially, yes.
That was my question. How do you put this genie back in the box? Well, if there's a end date that terminates it, and I guess we're either all going to learn that we're wrong in how we put boxes around these things, right? Maybe it'll all work out just fine, right? And it doesn't. Obviously, we have proof that it did.
Yes, so we will be monitoring. We have certain rights to attach conditions. There are limits on hours. The question is whether we could oppose more restrictive hours. I'm not sure about that. We haven't had to broach that issue yet, but we do have some ability to impose some reasonable conditions on the approvals that we issue. Just also, you should know, if we don't approve them in 10 days, they're automatically approved. If we deny them, instead of the appeal going to the Zoning Board of Appeals, it comes to you guys. So if we deny something because we think it's going to have a health and safety issue, you guys are the authority that would hear the appeal of our decision, not the ZBA. Whether that happens...
Does that come from an executive order?
Yes.
Peter, what kind of staff are you sending out there? Yourself, Denise, building officials, fire marshal?
All of the above. We have we've had the Economic Development Commission has hosted 2 Zoom meetings with almost every staff member we have, from physical services, to the health district. We all, got together. They all assisted in preparing the application and setting up a process. We've set up an expedited process. Normally, the application would come to one person, and that person would then distribute it. We set up a group email, so anybody who would have the potential to comment on the application, they all get it the same day and immediately start their review, because we only have 10 days. So, but the ultimate decision is the zoning officer in concert with the building official on issuing the actual approval. The other beautiful thing the state did is they didn't allow us to charge a fee for any of this. So, in the spirit of expediting and supporting these businesses in these times, but just so you're aware of that.
You sound well organized. I'm pleased to hear that.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Does that, Peter, zoning officer, do you mean zoning enforcement officer, or you, who's the approver?
Zoning officer, not me.
Peter, are there any noise restrictions in these outdoor seating and shopping areas?
That's a good question. The order basically throws out all of the local rules, so it does allow us to set hours in the evening. I think it's 11 p.m. on the weekends and 9 p.m. during the week, so there is that. But I would probably, say that our noise ordinances might technically be out the window as well as all the other. Okay. Maybe Rich or the attorneys can weigh in on that, but.
No, I would say that you could impose as a condition that they comply with the town noise ordinance, and if they want to appeal that, they can.
Sure.
I also think that you can set an earlier closing time than the default in there. I was part of that conversation, so the way it was worded is really kind of awkward. It's basically 11 p.m. or earlier unless it's later. So, I think if everything else is silent, it's 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday and 9 p.m. the other nights of the week, but you can make it later or earlier in as part of your approval.
So I think in that scenario, the requests that are going to be the problems, potentially the problems, are those that want outside dining along with liquor. The normal outside dining restaurants that don't have that probably would shut down earlier anyway. So I think the fact that we can attach reasonable conditions, I think, gives us the opportunity to impose some of those things that would put some safeguards in place.
Yeah.
So you've raised the liquor. Normally that would have to be enclosed. They waive all those sort of things too?
I heard something today that they still need to get approval from, the state liquor control people, but I've heard the opposite of that as well. So it's a good question.
Yeah, if they have a permit, they don't need to get a patio or an extension permit to move it outside, but they're limited to whatever their existing permit is.
And then I assume if they don't have it, then obviously they can't without dealing with the state.
Right.
So they have to get a liquor for liquor uses. They have to get a permit from Department of Liquor Control, patio permit.
So that's if they already have one, they don't need to get it modified to include a patio or
right
extension.
Right. So the other big things, the second Borden building, you may have gone by. They are putting the finishing touches on the outside. We've been out there a couple times doing our inspections. We're going to try and wrap that up this week. They are planning on moving in the first residents on or about June 1st. So that project is nearing completion. He has not indicated who the commercial tenants will be. He had some people, but I think with what's going on with the virus, those plans are put on a little bit on the back burner. So, but the residential component is almost done. He's still working on some of the rooftop improvements, but he's nearing completion on that. The Puritan furniture, former Puritan furniture building, we're getting ready to issue the building permit for that, so that should start up very soon. And then we're looking at the final revised plans for the bank where the tilted kilt used to be. So that is moving along as well.
Good. Excellent.
Yeah, it sure is.
I must admit that the Borden properties, both of them, pretty smart looking buildings.
Really turned out well. There's some rooftop screening that was in the plan that I'm talking to the developer about. I actually don't think it's necessary. I don't know if anyone feels strongly about that. I've been around the site. I've looked at it from up the Silas Deane Highway, down the Silas Deane Highway. They may do it anyway, but I just wanted you to be aware that they have a whole bunch of rooftop mechanicals, but they're situated in such a location right in the middle that and the building is so high that looking up at that angle, even from a good distance, you really can't see anything. So, so we're having that conversation. We're having that conversation.
The screens getting any noise from the units?
It wasn't intended. I don't recall during the whole proceeding that we spent any time. I think they just incorporated it into the plan, thinking that it was necessary. And it's hard to model things like that, you know, until you see it in the field. I don't remember it being a controversy, so I was kind of inclined, you know, that maybe they don't need to do it. The one thing they are not doing, and they can obviously come back and do this at a latter point, they're not doing the solar panel carports. You know, personally, I never liked including those into the project. They really were awkward looking, but they decided they're not going to do that at this point. They may come back and do that down the road. So just a heads up on that as well.
We didn't require it, right? So not doing it doesn't really mean anything?
No.
And the screening issue on the roof doesn't affect their plans for the rooftop bar or anything?
No, they've got a separate patio situation up there with its own screening, and the mechanicals are out of the way on both sides. It may be noisy, I don't know, up there as it relates to that, but those screening panels were not going to do anything for the folks who were actually on the roof. So
Right.
those are the highlights.
Was there something else up with the lifetime achievements? I see the letter, but was there?
So there was 2 awards given by the CFPZA. I have them. One is for Joe, and the other was it Tom? I think Tom.
Yes.
So I have those. They wanted us to give them out in some visible, ceremonious way at a point when we're actually having a real meeting. We're all together. I'm not sure why. So otherwise, I can put them in the next packet. So they wanted I think they wanted some pomp and circumstance or something like that, since you didn't have the opportunity to walk down the aisle and pick them up in person.
Well, let me be the first to, congratulations, Joe. I assume yours is lifetime?
Yes, thank you, Tom.
Oh, excellent.
And Tom?
Well deserved.
You do indeed. What is Tom's, a 10-year or what?
Is it 10 or 12? I'm trying to remember the thresholds again.
Well,
12.
The 12 year.
I thought he got one last year.
And the year before that. And the year before that. So congratulations to you both.
Congratulations.
Mr. Chairman, could I express condolences of the commission to Dan Silver on the loss of his mother?
Thank you very much, George.
You're welcome.
Sorry, Dan.
Very sorry, Dan.
All right, is there anything else on the agenda? I think that was it, right? Next applicant, or next application is accessory use shed or something, right?
Yes,
Other
for
than that-
the Methodist Church. I may add some just administrative stuff to the agenda, things, we talked about the LID regulations and a couple other things, so I may add some of that to the next agenda since we're going to be together and maybe we can accomplish something above and beyond that one application.
Anything else then, folks? It's gotten dark on Rich, so we're beginning to lose him with his black coat.
All we can see is the W.
Exactly. And Dave, it was nice for you to join us from outer space and put that behind you, so that was nice of you. All right? And if you didn't notice, I was coming in and out. I would go out every time I had a drink of water.
I got water?
So I did the water on air, I did the water.
Yeah.
You're clever.
All right.
Real toast to Joe Hammer and Tom Deane, huh?
Yeah,
Indeed.
Thank you guys, congratulations.
That's right.
yeah.
Tom, just don't throw your cat.
Ooh.
Hey, you know what we forgot to do? Suggest to Chris Henney that the high school have their graduation down there instead at the movie theater.
Yeah, it's too bad we don't have a ski lift.
I know, that's a good plan too, right?
Yeah, I feel sorry for the kids. They're really disappointed.
Yeah, that's horrible.
I'm sure. All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor say
Good
aye.
night, you guys. Take care.
Aye.
Well, stay well,
Good night,
guys.
everybody.
Good night.
Take care.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.